To me, Wingman Day really boils down to the first and foremost thing is starts with ourselves, which is really self-awareness. And when you look at the themes of what we have today, starting with emotional intelligence and some of the other topics, it really stresses that point, because that's, if you start from there and you understand exactly how to know yourself, then it allows you to build relationships with those that are around you. Wingman Day, to me, in a word, really is about relationships. And the relationships are to your team and to who we consider our wingmen, those members on our team who we really rely on to function as a team and to help take care of us. And so if you think about it from that, when you look at the themes that we have today, again, I mentioned emotional intelligence, but it also focuses on how do we connect not only to our civilians in the workforce here, but into our community. Again, those relationships are really what bring us meaning and connection into not only what we're doing here as a mission for the NRO, but also as a member of our Air Force and a member of our community. And so with that, to me, I think if we put ourselves in that frame of mind of why we are doing Wingman Day, I think it's very fitting that we have the speaker that we have this morning. Mr. Ben King is an Army veteran and the founder of a nonprofit organization called Armor Down. And with that, I'll turn over the mic to you, Ben. Thank you.
Well, first, allow me just to say a special thank you to General Danker, Chief Call, and Major Hempen, wherever you are. This is a dream come true, and I can't believe I'm here talking to you fine people, so I feel incredibly privileged and honored. So let me just start by saying thank you very much. My objective today is to bring emotional intelligence off the screen, out of the idea, and into something that you can really use and really work with. And so what we're dealing with is emotion. And while we can give emotion a lot of language, emotion and emotional intelligence deal with first awareness of what's going on inside of us, and then through repeated awareness of what's going on inside of us, tools and resources for how to engage with, learn how to maximize, learn how to settle, learn how to grow these internal environments. And the reason why that matters is because how we are on the inside, our integrity, plays a fundamental role as how we are as a unit, the integrity of our unit. So these things tie together. So beyond the idea, what is emotional intelligence? Let me first just give you an experience to understand kind of the realm that we're dealing with. So none of you have to participate. I only invite you to try this. But the first thing you'd want to do is you just want to notice your breathing. So everyone just kind of notice your breathing. It's easy to notice, and you just feel it. But the next thing I want you to do is go into your edge a little bit. And don't do it yet. Let me just explain to you. So the first thing you do is you take a breath in. Don't do it yet. Breathe a little bit more. Breathe a little more. Breathe a little bit more. Now, you're going to hold that edge. Don't do it yet. Don't do it yet. Hold that edge, right? Holding this edge, and what you're going to experience inside of you is your biology telling you, okay, you can't hold this very much longer, it's time to breathe out. So first thing to notice is that your biology has experience. Now, in order to tell someone else about it, you have to get it language. But in the moment, it's all yours. So when you're ready, take a deep breath in, breathe in a little bit more, breathe in a little bit more, hold at the top for just a moment. Feel it's comfortable here. Notice. And then notice as you let it go, as you settle, notice how when you let the breath go, your body might give you a sense of, That's the realm we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with what's going on the inside, and it's happening moment to moment. And only you, interpersonally, can recognize and study and interact with enough time to make your emotional intelligence matter. So keep that in mind. All right, so the way I'm going to try to bring this to you is by sharing a little bit of my story. So just an outline here. I'm going to talk about returning from war, becoming a father, being a community leader, and then I'm going to encourage you to take action starting now to prepare for this coming Memorial Day. Okay, so I'm a veteran of the Iraq War. I feel like it's important to get this out of the way first. I definitely look better with a mustache and a shaved head. My wife won't agree with you, but because you are military, you guys understand. So December 31st, 2006. As you can see very clearly from these holes in the door, our Humvee was hit by an explosively formed projectile, and that's where they had this cylinder filled with molten copper and explosive, and when it explodes, it goes 8,000 feet per second, and it cuts through armor like butter. Well, fortunately for me and the rest of our truck, they either set it off a moment too late or a moment too early, however you want to study the mystery. But anyway, I looked at this experience as like, I made it. I was able to comport myself in battle. I was able to comport myself at the tip of the spear. And I came home feeling like I had served my country well, and it was time to be a hero, right? And I thought I was for about 6 months. This is a picture of me with Redskins, former Washington Redskins offensive lineman Chris Samuels. That's another one of our buddies. But when I came back from Iraq, I really felt like I had an excuse to be the best. I was the best of downrange. I really served my country well. I came back really feeling good. Well, on the inside, that wasn't the case. On the inside, there was a lot of anger. And the experience of anger is an experience kind of like this. There's this up kind of feeling, and there's a tension. And what would happen with my anger was that it would show up in different ways like this. It wasn't just my thoughts, but in my body. And it was like that, right? And there were times when I would just feel so angry about this or that my jaw would tense, my shoulders would hunch, and it would just be come on, are you kidding me? This is what's important to you? Don't you understand what's going on downrange? Don't you understand what people are doing on your behalf? Don't you care? It's just, And so my mind was always spinning, right? Constant. It was the worst at night. That image right there on the left is an experience of what I call a white night. And that's where I'd be trying to fall asleep, but my mind would be so spun up that it would be just on. So I'd close my eyes, and what I would see behind my eyes was this, if you've ever imagined one of those fluorescent light bulbs that twitches and sputters and has that nasty light that you never want to be around, that's what it felt like behind my eyes. And so it was just this constant space of being revved. And I just wanted it to stop, and I did not have any idea how to do it. The first thing that helped me reconnect when I got back was connecting to my body. Now, I didn't know that I had any choice in the matter. I just thought anger was something that just happened in my mind, and it just didn't occur to me that I could do anything about it. But when I started having success when I came home was when I started to reconnect to my body, in particular my senses, right? And so the reason why I have a target symbol up there is the first time I was emotionally intelligent, the first time I actually had awareness of my emotion of anger and did something about it was at Target. So like I mentioned before in the past signs, there was a picture of me with a Redskins player. Well, as you know, I like the Washington Redskins. It's a terrible curse. They've been bad for the past 25 years, but I can't help it. All right, it's a failing of my emotional intelligence, as it were. But anyway, we were on our way to do errands on a Sunday, my wife and I, and I said to her, I'd really like to watch the game at 1, and it's about 11 o'clock, so we got plenty of time. Things are good. Nothing's going on inside of me. So we get to Target, and we're going through our stuff, and it's about 12:15. And so I say to my wife, Alina, let's kind of wrap this up. The game's starting to happen. She's like, all right. So time's going by, and you might know what I'm talking about here, but there's this feeling inside of me that starts to kind of move. And I'm not really interacting with this too much because it's more in my thought. Why isn't she going faster? Why isn't this? Why isn't that? Da, 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 da. And so what's happening is my body's starting to build. And she comes up to me and it's about 12:20. And I'm like, we got to get home. We got about 15 minutes to get home, and I don't want to just turn on the TV. I want to see the kickoff. So I'm starting to get antsy. So she comes up to me and she's like, I just want to go look at the sales section. And so inside me, it's like a bomb went off. It was just this. Right? And so a lot of directions important. So this bomb just goes off inside me, and I'm like, it's literally like this. I caught it right here. Right here. It was like a sensation that I caught right here, and I went like this. Walked over to like a baby section and started doing this. Walked back over to where we were, and my wife's kind of walking. She didn't see this, right? She's kind of walking. She goes like this. She comes back, and she goes, you know what? Let's just go. You got to get home for the game. And I'm just like, that was so much more effective. Oh, my God. Like, this is way more effective than being right. You said A, B, C, and D, and here we are, D, E, and F. Reasonably, you should be getting into the car. That was not effective in any way, shape, or form. What was effective was not saying anything. But because before that kind of environment, this would come up and there would be no choice. There was no, if I was angry enough or fired up enough, I felt like it was okay. Boom. And sometimes it is, right? But that wasn't then. And I never had the ability to settle that, to armor down. I could never do it before. But the first time I did it, it was just like, choice. Great. Whew. So that really, really helped out with anger. And I find anger to be one of the kind of the easier ones to interact with. I think anger is, for me, anger is very accessible. I notice it really well. It starts here and it typically moves up. Okay? Here moves up. All right. So next thing is, oh, shoot. We good? So this is, so what that is, what I did was practicing something called mindfulness, right? And so mindfulness is being able to be aware of what's going on and then being able to interact with it as it is, okay? And the reason why this is significant is because if I had interacted with my body sensation as judgment, I shouldn't be angry, or my wife shouldn't be doing this, or this needs to happen, or this needs to happen, I would have been away from the actual experience. And actually, instead of choosing what was going on and what was going to take place in the moment, right, I was in projection in the future and into the past. Part of what makes mindfulness so useful is to first be able to observe the present, be able to see what's going on. And the reason why non-judgment's important is because you want to interact in the moment. It's not what's going to happen in the future. It's what's happening now and what can I do about it now. When it comes to your emotions, you're dealing with your emotions in that moment. So that's what mindfulness is. One other thing I really want to point out about mindfulness is where this definition is coming from. So Gloria H. Park, PhD, Senior Mind-Body Scientist, Consortium, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. If you see her email signature, it is a mile long. I mean, it is incredible. But when I came back from Iraq, there was nothing like this. So this was in 2007, 2008, and the military was not dealing with this, wasn't engaging with this at all. But now, look at that. I mean, that is so cool. Like, that is a testament to the forward-leaning nature of our armed forces. The tip here is tame the mind with the senses. And so that was, when I tamed my mind with the senses, because I was in my body, I used sound and contact, right? Instead of going into thought and into anger, into expression of idea about what's going on, came into my body of touch, right? So we'll come back to more of that later. All right. The next experience I want to talk about is becoming a dad. So that's my daughter, my first daughter. I have two now. That's Allegra, and my other daughter's name is Liliana. They're the best. I mean, they're the best teachers in the world. And like with anger, it's almost comical. You know, they'll make me angry all the time, but you can't throw the baby out the window. You know, so like, so it's been incredibly effective in parenting. But what was more effective in parenting, and this is kind of what mindfulness kind of looks like in the bigger context, is there's a guy named John Kabat-Zinn. He's arguably the father of American mindfulness. Mindfulness has been around for thousands of years, but in the West, John Kabat-Zinn really played a role in bringing mindfulness to the West and in getting it studied by science in the West. And so relanguaging mindfulness from kind of the Far East style of presentation to the more Western style of presentation. So John Kabat-Zinn. But what he talks about is he talks about mindfulness giving you an ability to relate to the moment differently. He calls it relationality. And the reason why that's significant, and the reason why I want to point it out, is because my relationality to my daughter, my relationality to the female side of the human spectrum was largely oriented in a more amorous kind of relationship. My relationship to the female side of human experience was not around nurturing as much as it was around being intimate and being in connection with the female side of the human experience. And that was something that was very meaningful to me, and it's why I married my wife, and it was, something that really meant a lot. And I found it incredibly challenging to recreate or to re-relate to the female side of the human experience with my daughter. I found that very difficult. And part of the reason why I found it very difficult is because in the act of taking care of my daughter's hygiene, I found relating and interacting with her body to be very, very incongruous with my former experience with female anatomy. And so this experience caused me a lot of shame. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I felt like I wasn't doing things right. And so in the act of taking care of my daughter, changing diapers and the like, it was constantly either in my head, back and forth, past, future, past, future, past, future, or inattention to what I'm doing, or the feeling of shame. So like with anger, shame is more like mud, like sinking, kind of like, it's like a kind of an uncomfortable, like, ugh, kind of feeling, right? How do you language this stuff, right? How do you language shame? I can give you ideas about shame, definition, words about shame all day long. But the feeling of it, so that when you see something similar, you're like, aha, that's shame. What can I do about it? That's tough. So anyway, shame was something that kind of pervaded that in first 6 months, and it messed up my ability to take good care of my daughter. Because of my shame, because of my inability to find a way to interact in this context, I caused my daughter to have a urinary tract infection. It was my fault. A 6-month-old with a urinary tract infection is a big deal. Now, fortunately, my wife, who's superior to me in every way, found out through, I don't know how she did this, but she smelled the difference in my daughter's urine. And so we went to the doctor, and the doctor, through relatively non-invasive stuff, was able to get things figured out. But this was a real indicator to me that this is a no-go, right? I need to be able to take care of my daughter in all ways. And so this going on inside of me, that's a no-go. We got to fix that. So what helped is called the language of lids. And so this is where, instead of going into the experience of shame and trying to ascertain, where's this coming from? What does that mean? What does it mean to feel shame? Who should I talk to about this? I need to sign this. I need to do that, this and that, and this and that and this. Instead, what I started to do was just interact with the experience as it is, right? And the way I did that was by, instead of giving it whys and analysis and maybes, I studied the experience according to its qualities. right? So a quality of shame is its location. Where did I feel the sensation in my body? So right about here, okay? How intense was it? In the early days, the intensity was high. On a scale of 1 to 10, the intensity of shame was like a 7 or an 8. Its direction, it was flat, okay? The feeling of it was flat. Anger is up and out. Shame is flat and sucking, like it felt like I was being pulled down. Depth, it felt big. Like it felt like this was a very big environment. So I had to deal with that in the kind of the bigness of it, acknowledging that. And then the size of it was, it had impact in that moment and it had impact out into the world. So there was just this in kind of the interacting with the qualities of shame gave me an opportunity to, instead of talking about it in my head, past, future, why is this, da 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 da, I was just interacting with it as it is. And here's what's really cool about that. When you move into a space and interact with it with just what it is, and not give it your thoughts, not give it your brain power, you deal with the fact that pervades all aspects of human experience, and that is that emotions are temporary. The emotion that I had where I made it, I'm gonna come back from Iraq, a hero, da 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 da, that was very temporary. Shame inside that moment, also temporary. You know what keeps things relevant, keeps things going on? Traumatic events and thoughts. You can keep something inside your body incredibly relevant, inside your physical sensational spectrum, very relevant, by thinking about it over and over and over again all the time, giving it language, giving it thoughts, putting your brain power there. Our thoughts can create sensations, our sensations can create thoughts. So by using the language of lids, you practice being with the sensation and its temporary nature. And so what happens is when I experience shame, I notice its location, its intensity, its direction, its depth, and its size. And what typically takes place is after about 90 seconds, it just disappears. And so that's a really cool aspect of the human experience. When things settle out, they just kind of settle into a neutral environment. And you can get an experience of this, kind of notice what an internal environment feels like to have an intense experience down to a soft experience by simply swallowing.